Okay, in this video we're going to be checking out the LDARC KK220. This is the first in their new KK series. There's going to be 3 of them that are coming out. I should be getting all of them. This one here is their lightest one that's made with some 1806 motors here. 1806 2500 kV. Same motors that were used on the 200 GT, and it's actually fairly similar. Let me just bring that in here and show you the comparison. Basically, the cage is very different. So the aluminum cage here is still 70-75 aluminum, but it's much bigger. If you kind of compare the 2 cages side by side, you can see the size difference. They've kind of gone away from this egg-shaped style here. I guess they wanted a little bit more room to put another, basically a 3rd board on top of the stack there, and that's what they've done. You see here, the stack is essentially the same stack, the same 20 amp 4-in-1 EC. It's a D-Shot 600 EC. So this is their KingKong stack, the LDARC stack. F4 flight controller with Betaflight OSD, and you get the power switchable video transmitter now, 0 to 200 milliwatts. However, it's still old school, button operated. There's a small button, and probably not going to be able to see it's under the receiver there, to change your band's channel and power. No smart audio. So that is, in my opinion, a pretty big downside. Any new models that are coming out nowadays towards the end of 2018 really ought to have some sort of VTX remote control. That's kind of a given, and if any model that doesn't have that, I think that is a kind of a big flaw, and something that they ought to address. But perhaps they had a surplus of parts. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe they had a lot of these 1806 motors lying around, and the stack here, the stack's been around for a while, since probably the beginning of the year. It's been used in a lot of things. So it is a 20 by 20 stack, by the way, and it's the same 2 boards that are in the 200 GT, but the video transmitter is different. So here they had that old style 100 milliwatt video transmitter on the bottom. They've gotten rid of that for a 20 by 20 board, but it still doesn't have smart audio or VTX remote control. So that's kind of a bummer. They're still using the same KingKong 5040 props here, and this batch was better. I actually was able to get it on the motors. The batch that came with the 200 GT wouldn't go on the motors at all, so I couldn't use them. And then the camera here is different. Runcam Swift Mini versus the Micro that's on the 200 GT. So the image quality is a little bit better. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit heavier as well. The video transmitter here does have a micro FL connector to an SMA adapter, and they have this little whip antenna on the back here. That ought to hold up very well in a crash. Obviously, if you don't like linear antennas or the reception for that, you're not going to like that. Now the frame is also different here. Basically, the frame's a little bit bigger, so it was 200 millimeters on the old 200 GT, but the bottom plate was only 4 millimeters, but the arms were wider. And what they've gone here now is to a thicker 5 millimeter arm. You can see there. And so the arm is now 5 millimeters on the new version. Plus, they're not as wide, so they're a little bit thinner in width here. So they're only 9 millimeters in width and 5 millimeters in thickness. So they're adding the strength in the thickness and reducing the width of the arm to make it a little bit more skinny, less drag, and it's probably more marginally a little bit faster. Kind of hard to tell. It is heavier though, so that's kind of the downside here. I'll talk about it there in a second. But one last thing with the arms is they are replaceable, and so you can see there that these arms are actually separated. So there's actually a piece right there. So these are replaceable. I don't know if the replacement arms are available or not yet. They probably will be at some point. Always the LDARC has replacement parts available at some point. That's another difference here between this new model and the 200 GT. This was a unibody bottom plate, so if you broke an arm, you had to replace the whole bottom plate. But if you broke an arm here, you just have to replace the one arm. But I gotta tell you, at this weight and a 5 millimeter arm, I would find it very difficult to break this. You would have to have a very hard crash, I think, to break an arm. But if you do, it shouldn't be too hard to replace one. One more thing on the frame dimensions. It's not quite 220 millimeters. It's about 218 millimeters motor to motor, and it is a true X frame, about 153 millimeters side to side and front to back. Okay, as I mentioned, this is heavier than the 200 GT. The 200 GT weighed about 198 grams with the props and everything, no battery. And this one here is coming in at 200 and almost 257 grams. So significantly heavier than the 200 GT, obviously with the bigger cage, the thicker arms, bigger camera, all around everything, just bigger. So you're gaining about 50, almost 60 more grams in this. But I didn't really notice it too much in terms of the power. It just felt pretty good. Flew with a 850 4S LiPo, like I did in the previous demo. And I think the flight times are a little bit less because it is a bit heavier, but it wasn't too bad. So I flew like, well, I think a battery I have right now is kind of in need of replacement. I think something's up with that one. I'm gonna recommend a different battery in the description. The tattoo battery that I've been using. I gotta get some GNBs. I think you'll get better flight time and performance than I got in my video. Also in the flight demo, I didn't change any of the PIDs. They came with the same, ironically, the same PID tune that was in the 200 GT. So I looked at the numbers. I was like, oh, it's the same PIDs. I think it's a slightly newer version. I think they went from 3.2 to 3.3, but it's still on an older version of Betaflight. So yeah, it's a pretty basic tune. So it's not I would call it like in terms of percentage, probably in the 60 to 65%. I would probably want to spend a little more time getting a little bit better tune, but it is on a looser side. So I think they went that way so that people don't get a lot of oscillations if they're doing a lot of punch outs. Although I still got some oscillations even on high throttle punch outs. So yeah, I don't know if you guys are interested in a tuning video for this. I'm not sure how popular this model is going to be, but I'll keep track of the comment section of this video, and if I get a lot of requests for that, I'll look into making a PID tuning video on this. It shouldn't be too hard to tune this up a little bit better, but yeah, I'll look at the responses and see if there's interest in that. If there is, then I'll go ahead and make one. Another thing I want to mention is that this model is plug and play. I think that's where the direction they've been going for pretty much all their new models. They're not putting receivers in anymore, at least as far as I can tell. So this came as a plug and play, and since it has the same board and the same receiver plug as the 200 GT, all I had to do is unplug the receiver that I put in the 200 GT and plug it in here. So it's an XM Plus. If you want to see how I soldered it up, you can watch the other video here in the corner, the 200 GT video, where I explain the process. Basically, I just unplugged it from the same board on the 200 GT and plugged it into this one. It's the exact same flight controller, so I'll just unplug that, plug it in here, and then obviously just zip tied. Put some zip ties on here, some heat shrink, and then have the antennas out here. It worked out perfectly. Basically, the out-of-box experience was pretty good. I just swapped in the new receiver. I charged up a battery. I did go into the Betaflight and set my modes to my transmitter to match that, and also to check the channel maps, which you should always do. Otherwise, weird things will happen. That was about it. It took me 5 minutes, and then I put the props on and went and flew it. And the flight you're seeing is, I think, the second flight or third flight that I took from this quad. And yeah, I thought it flew okay. Not perfect, but you can see the flight demo for yourself. And I'll go ahead and roll that flight footage now. Okay, so these are the PIDs I'm using here. This is stock PIDs that came out of the box, and as you know, I'm no longer doing PID tunes on a lot of these RTFs. I'm going to be doing whatever comes out of the box, unless it's just like a really bad, just default flash, and didn't look like they did any tuning at all. So looks like they did a little bit of tuning on this one, so I'm going to go with this one. If you want to see a better tune on this, then you're going to have to leave a comment below. I do keep track of those. And if there's enough interest, I'll do a video where I'll tune it up a little bit better. This tune's okay. It's a little on the loose side for my taste, but other people might prefer that. It's up to you if you think it's good enough or not. I don't know. Opinions will vary, but yeah, I thought it flew okay out of the box for something that took very little time to get ready to set up and actually go and fly. So. It took me 5 minutes, and yeah, I had fun with this. I would have liked to see it a better tune for me, but other people might think this is fine. So leave your opinions below. If you want something better, let me know, and I'll look into maybe possibly doing a tuning video in the future. In any event, overall, I thought this flew good. If you guys are interested in checking it out, I'll put a link in the description.